If you've ever wanted to copy and paste a favorite item from your wardrobe, let me show you how I did exactly that with my favorite ready-to-wear cardigan. Even if the clothing item you want to recreate isn't a cardigan, you'll see all the steps that I followed to make something that's even better than the original. I'm on a journey to create an 80% handmade wardrobe, and to do that, I need to sew things that I actually know I'll love to wear. So I came up with this method of reimagining the things I already wear, but made to my exact taste. I'll show you how. I started by looking through my closet and seeing if there's anything I want to replace with something handmade. I pulled out this hot pink cardigan. I know what you're thinking. You look at me, you think Barbie, obviously. I mean, I look like Margot Robbie, right? I get mistaken for her all the time. But I actually feel a little bit embarrassed that I bought this because it is from H&M. And I really do try to not buy any fast fashion, especially, a $20 sweater that just feels kind of disposable. But I did buy it, and I did end up wearing it quite a bit. So again, this sweater was like $20, and I was influenced to buy it from this fashion blog that I sometimes read. So to that fashion blogger who I'm sure earned like a 10-cent commission, you're welcome. But even though it was cheap and I was influenced to buy it, and it's really not a color I wear that much, I wore it a lot. So I really started to think about why. I decided that what I like about it is, number one, the cotton fabric. I really like cotton sweaters because they're easy to wear even with nothing underneath, and they aren't itchy, and they're really not that super warm, so it's nice for this transitional time of year. It's also really chunky, which gives it this nice structured shape that I really like. And the cropped length looks really good with jeans, it's easy to layer, and it works well with a skirt too. I also like how the V-neck looks really good with necklaces. And I like that it's a really bright color. So I wear a lot of neutrals, and I like having a statement sweater like this in my wardrobe. But it is starting to look old and faded, and it's got this stain that I just can't get rid of. I don't know, it looks like detergent spilled on it, but I'm not quite sure. There are also things I wasn't crazy about. I thought the pink color was just a little bit too cool for my liking, and it's a little bit too Barbie. It just doesn't go with everything. By the way, this is Gordy, our brand new rescue dog and Lucy's new BFF. He is a total Velcro dog. So I started to think, how could I sew something that wouldn't be an exact replica, but it would take my favorite things about this cardigan and turn them into something even better? I knew I already had the perfect pattern to use. This is the Lisa pattern from Seamwork, and it's actually totally free this fall. If you want to download it for yourself, I'll tell you how to get it for free at the end of this video. I absolutely love this pattern, and I've wanted to make it ever since it came out. I knew it would look really good in a fleece or in a French terry, but I also wanted it to look like a sweater, so I decided to look for a sweater knit. My first stop was the fabric store to try to find a sweater knit that I liked, but I knew that I didn't want another hot pink sweater. I thought about some other options, and I even considered going with this really soft leopard print. But I finally decided to look for something in cherry red. It's one of my favorite colors, and it's one that would go so much better with everything in my closet. But I couldn't really find anything that had that look and texture of the pink sweater. I did find a beautiful wool sweater knit that I actually really fell in love with. It didn't have the structure that I originally wanted, but the color was so beautiful, and I went for it. And then disaster struck, and it was completely my own fault. So in the past, I've often used a method called a London shrink for wool fabrics. So essentially, you take a wool fabric and you put it in the dryer with a damp towel and you tumble dry it just for a little while to remove a little bit of the shrink. But what totally slipped my mind is that you should only do this with tightly woven wool fabrics and never with knits. So wool knits are really delicate and they should never go in the dryer. And I'd never throw a hand knit sweater I made into the dryer, but for some reason, this completely slipped my mind. And I don't know, I blame it on being sick lately. So it came out totally felted. It was not only way, way smaller, but the texture was more like boiled wool and it wasn't that stretchy. I was super disappointed, but I decided to go back to the drawing board. And you know what? I'm actually glad this happened because what I realized is that I'd been so excited about the color of this fabric that I totally ignored two of the things that I mentioned that I really loved about the original. One was the cotton fabric, and two was that chunky rib knit. So I started looking around online, and I found this chunky cotton ribbed sweater knit that comes in a bunch of colors, including a bright cherry red, and it looked exactly like what I wanted. The only problem was that the Lisa pattern has a facing along the neckline, and it also has cuffs, and I worried that this thick fabric would be too bulky for those areas. But then I saw that the same shop had matching ribbing. So ribbing is a specific fabric that's made for areas like this on a sweater. I actually have a whole video on on rib knits, including ribbing. So if you want to learn more about that, check that video out. All right, let's head into the sewing shed and get sewing on my new Lisa cardigan. Okay, so I have my fabric now, including a beautiful chunky rib knit and a finer ribbing for the facing and cuffs. My next conundrum was working with a chunky sweater knit and making sure that the stitches don't unravel. I wasn't sure if sewing the sweater on the serger would be enough reinforcement to keep that from happening. See, the bigger the stitches, the more you have to worry about fraying. Now, if you want to know more about sewing with sweater knits and overcoming some of these kinds of challenges, stick around because we have a video coming up all about buying and sewing sweater knits. But here's how I solved this. I cut a few swatches and test sewed some seams using both the serger and my sewing machine. I found that the serger did a good job of keeping any fraying in check, but I had to make sure the seam allowances were wide enough to catch everything, and the edges were aligned really well as I sewed. The last thing I wanted was holes in my seams. Then I was ready to sew. I used a rotary cutter to cut out the pattern, which is only a few pieces. This is definitely the easiest way to cut a bulky knit like this. Sewing this together was a breeze, and I finished it in just a few hours. But one thing I definitely liked about the original was the cropped length. So I made sure that when it came time to hem, I compared my new sweater against the old one to get the exact same look. I also liked how the original had buttons in a matching color, so I used some red buttons to match the rest of the cardigan. I love the way this cardigan came out and all the different outfits that I can wear with it. I think it looks great layered over a dress. The oversized fit makes it look a little bit more casual and also extends the use of my summer dresses. It also looks great worn on its own with jeans. I like the V-neck worn with a scarf or with bold jewelry, and I think the red color looks great with dark denim. I know I'm also going to wear it a lot paired with a skirt and flats. I wear A-line skirts all fall, so a cropped cardigan is a must-have for my wardrobe. The red color really does go with so much of what I already have in my closet too. Red is just one of those colors that you can use to create some really fun and unexpected pairings. But what I love most is that I learned the importance of really paying attention to what you like to wear. Originally, I went with that wool fabric just because I liked it, and I ignored some of the elements that I enjoyed most about the original. But fate stepped in and I had to start all over. So choosing something closer to what I originally wanted turned out to be the best thing for me. So if you're trying to recreate something from your wardrobe that you love, don't just think about what you really like about the original item. Really try to figure out the best way to incorporate those elements and what you're willing to compromise on and what you're not. And if you love this cardigan as much as I do, you can get the pattern for free right now through the end of fall. Just follow the link below to sign up for a free newsletter, and we'll send you a new free pattern every single season. And one more thing about the fabric. I personally think a rib knit is a really great choice for a sweater like Lisa, and using ribbing for the cuffs like I did is super helpful, but there are a few things you have to know if you're planning to use this kind of fabric. After watching this next video, you'll know exactly how to sew with rib knit, so all the sweaters you make will have a totally polished look. It's a wrap.